Welcome back. Okay, so if you're joining us today, it probably means that grueling internship hunt finally paid off. You've got some incredible experience under your belt, and now, well, now you're staring down the barrel of a massive, slightly terrifying transition, landing your first real job. It's scary, I know, but don't worry, because this explainer is basically your ultimate survival playbook. We're going to completely demystify the hiring process, and we'll dive straight into the actual strategies career experts use to prep their absolute top candidates. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be normalizing the fear, tackling first impressions, crushing video interviews, mastering the STAR method, and finally, nailing the follow-up.
All right, Section 1. Normalizing the fear.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Because before we even think about suits or resumes, we really need to talk about mindset. So let me ask you a question. Do you have your entire life figured out? Seriously. There is this crushing, heavy pressure on recent grads to have a perfect, bulletproof career plan mapped out from day one. I remember getting my very first batch of post-grad rejection letters, and honestly, I felt like a total failure. It's a very real anxiety. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret the experts know. Almost nobody actually has it figured out.
In fact, experts constantly remind us that it is completely okay to figure things out as you go. Navigating the messy reality of your early career, that's not a sign you're failing. It's actually a feature of professional growth. Honestly, rejection is just redirection. So take a deep breath with me here. You really don't need to have the next 40 years planned out. You literally just need to nail your next interview.
Which brings us to Section 2, First Impressions. Now that we've built some trust and taken that deep breath, let's arm ourselves with some specific, actionable tactics, starting with how you actually present yourself to the world. Look, before you even open your mouth, you're being evaluated. According to Career Center data, an employer forms a crucial first impression of you in just 7 seconds. 7 seconds! In that tiny window, they aren't evaluating your degree or your GPA. They're primarily just asking themselves, does this person look right for the role?
So, to make absolutely sure you pass that 7-second test, here's a highly digestible conservative grooming checklist. You want clean and neat hair and nails, and a conservative 2-piece business suit in a basic color. Keep your jewelry and your cologne to an absolute minimum. You really don't want your scent lingering in the room after you leave. Make sure you empty your pockets so you don't have weird bulges or jingling keys, and absolutely no chewing gum. And hey, remember, taking the time to dress for success doesn't just show respect to the employer, it actually boosts your own confidence levels when you walk through that door.
Moving right along to Section 3, Video Interviews.
So while you might get lucky with a standard in-person interview, you also need to prepare for a very modern hurdle, the one-way, pre-recorded video interview where you don't even speak to a live human. You need to treat this exactly like an in-person meeting, right down to wearing that 2-piece suit. But you also have to play producer. Step 1. Test your tech beforehand. Make sure your device is plugged in or fully charged and that your mic sounds crystal clear. Step 2. Find a quiet, well-lit space. You always want to face your light source. Never ever sit with a bright window directly behind you, or you're just going to look like a creepy shadow on the screen. And step 3. Look at the camera lens, not at yourself.
And speaking of looking at the lens, I love this incredibly practical, kind of cute tip to help you do exactly that. Just put a small sticky note right near your webcam that says, "Look here." It is so tempting to just watch yourself on the screen the whole time, right? But looking directly into the actual camera lens is the only way to create that feeling of virtual eye contact for the hiring manager who reviews your tape later.
Okay, Section 4, the STAR method.
All right, so you look the part and your tech is flawless. Now let's get into the real meat of this explainer. How to strategically answer the questions they actually ask you, specifically behavioral interview questions. You've definitely heard these before. They usually start with, "Tell me about a time when," or maybe they want to know about a time you faced a conflict, or a time you made a huge mistake. What the interviewer is really doing here is just asking for a good story. A story starring you as the main character, proving that you actually have all those soft skills you claim to have on your resume.
So, the crucial point is exactly how you structure that story, and that is where the STAR method comes in. It's an acronym to help it stick in your mind. Situation, task, action, result. First up, you set the scene by explaining the situation. Next, state the task, like what was your specific goal or responsibility. Then, detail the exact action you took to address the problem. And finally, you share the result. You just wrap it up with the measurable outcome of your actions.
Now, this excellent brainstorming guide from UNM Career Services recommends that you do not try to make up these stories on the spot. Please don't do that. Instead, you should prepare 5 specific STAR stories before you ever walk into the interview.
You're going to want to prep a story for an accomplishment you're really proud of, a time you went above and beyond, a conflict that was successfully resolved, a challenge you overcame, and a mistake you learned from. If you have those 5 stories holstered and ready to go, I promise you'll be able to cover almost any behavioral question they throw your way.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what a finished, polished star story looks like in action. In this concrete example, the applicant was the treasurer of a film club and realized they were $200 short for their upcoming movie nights. Right? That's the situation. The task? Well, they had to raise the money. The action? They spearheaded a bake sale, they recruited volunteers, and heavily promoted it on social media. And finally, the result? They raised over $350, added a special screening, and actually increased club attendance by 10%. See how clean that is? It's literally a perfect miniature narrative with a quantifiable, totally happy ending.
Finally, Section 5, the follow-up.
Okay, you confidently survived the interview, you delivered your star stories flawlessly, and you walked out the door. But hold on, because we need to cover how to claim your final victory with the follow-up. And for this, the number on the screen is your absolute golden rule, 24. You must send your thank you note or email within 24 hours of your interview. Sending an email is highly recommended because it's fast and it's reliable. Snail mail, especially if you're applying to government agencies or huge corporate offices, can get severely delayed.
So, what goes into this email? Here's the exact anatomy of a winning thank you note. Good news, it doesn't need to be long. You want to show genuine appreciation for their time. You absolutely need to reference a specific, interesting part of the conversation you had, just so they know it's not a generic form letter. Reiterate your strong interest in the role and invite them to reach out if they need any follow-up info. Oh, and by the way, if you were interviewed by a panel, it's perfectly acceptable to either send individual personalized notes to each person, or you can just send one really well-crafted collective email to the whole group.
All right, so what does this all mean? We've broken the whole shebang down. From normalizing the fear of figuring it out as you go, to surviving that brutal 7-second impression test, to starring in your very own behavioral stories. Yes, the early career job hunt is terrifying. It is! But it's also an incredible, exciting opportunity to share your unique journey with the world. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder as you prepare for your big day. What story are you going to tell in your next interview?